A Gittavach, everybody. So I'll tell you, Maisa. You know, it's an unfortunate truth of history that under the Tsar of Russia, there was no shortage, Nebuch, of gezeres, of decrees that would come to the Tsar's desk for approval to make the Yiddish people, to make Yiddishkeit and the Jewish people in Russia have an even harder time to survive and to thrive. And very often these decrees would pass through the Tsar's office and he would unfortunately stamp them and Yidden would have to deal with it. And sometimes the Tzadikim were able to be piled that the gezeres should stop. So the Maisa goes like this. There was once a particular minister in the government of the Tsar that was a big anti-Semite, and he was gathering for a significant amount of time, quote-unquote, evidence to show that Yiddishkeit is a religion which is, antithetical and rebellious against the Tsar's government. This was this guy's Inyan. And he's gathering data, marmakaimis from all over the place, that Yiddishkeit is an enemy. Okay. And after many, many months of, tireless work of gathering together this information in this particular, and again, in those days, it wasn't like on file in a computer. It was an actual, loose leaf of papers that he put together. So he was now going to travel to the Tsar and to present it to the Tsar for his approval to make some sort of gezer against the Yidden. Now, the Lubavitch Rebbe at the time was Rav Shalom Dov Ber Lubavitch, the great Rebbe Rashab. Now the Rashab, however he knew that this was happening, that this minister is trying to get this gezerah passed by the Tsar. So the Rebbe Rashab calls in his great son, who was eventually going to be the next Lubavitch Rebbe, Rav Yosef Yitzchak, the Rebbe Rayatz. And so the Rashab turns to the Rayatz and he says, I have to send you on a mission. You have to go to the capital, and you have to, using certain connections and certain people that you know and people that I know, to try to do whatever you can to be mishtadel, to work, to try to get rid of this gezerah. Okay, so he goes with the shlichus of his father, the great tzaddik. So he travels to the capital. He speaks to his contacts, this and that, this is shtadlus, this sort of back end channel, this back end channel. Nothing's working, nothing's doing. This minister is very, very well connected. There's nothing, all the back channels to try to stop this gezerah from going through. It was mamish futile. So the Rayatz has no choice, but he goes back to the Rebbe Rashab and to tell him that he wasn't able to be pile and we have to figure out some other mahalach. So he comes back to his father and he knocks on the office of his father. He opens the door. And he notices that right at that moment, the Rebbe Rashab was either right before davening or right after davening. He had his talis from davening on the table in front of him, and he was examining the tzitzis, either again about to put it on or putting it in the talis bag. And the Rayatz tells his father that unfortunately wasn't able to be pile, and the gezerah still seems to be going through. So Rashab looks at him, and he just says the following thing. He says that there was a story from the Baal Tanya, that the Baal Tanya also was aware of a particular gezerah that was almost being passed by the Tsar, and the Baal Tanya sent his son, the Mittler Rebbe, Rav Dov Ber, also on a mission to be mevatel gezerah. Rav Dov Ber, the Mittler Rebbe, also was not successful. Came back to the Baal Tanya, and about to tell the Baal Tanya that he wasn't successful, opens the door and sees the Baal Tanya fixing his tzitzis on his talis. And the Baal Tanya said to the Mittler Rebbe the following message. He said that you should know the koich of tzitzis is so profound, the kedusha of tzitzis by the Svarim, by the Arizal, is called an or makif, such an intense light of Hashem's presence, that it's doiche all the chitzainim. It pushes away all the forces of impurity without any fear, without any hesitation, just directly. And the Mittler Rebbe went to the Baal Tanya and kissed the tzitzis and went back to do the mission. So this is what the Rashab is telling the Rebbe Rayatz. So the Rebbe Rayatz gets the point. He goes over, kisses the Rashab's tzitzis, and goes back. But now when he goes back to the capital, instead of trying to go back ends and back doors and try to talk to this person, to that person, he decides, you know what? There's nothing to be afraid of. I'm going straight to the house of this minister, and I'm knocking on the door, and I'm just going to talk to him. Okay? So that's what he does. He goes to the minister's office, minister's house, knocks on the door, and the anti-Semite, the one that's making the gezerah, opens the door and sees the Rayatz. And he says, what do you want, Jew? So he says, I want to talk to you about this decree that you're trying to pass, which is a shocking thing to say. The minister should just kick him out. But lo and behold, the minister says, okay, let's talk. So the Rayatz goes in, they sit down to the office, and the minister says, "What do you want to know about it?" And the Rayatz says, "I want to know what are you going to claim?" Which again, there's no reason why the minister should even be paying attention to anything that the tzaddik is saying. But he says, "Fine, I'll tell you exactly." And he takes out the portfolio from his thing, the whole months of effort, and he lays it down and he starts reading it. And the Rayatz says, "No, I want to see it myself." So he takes the evidence. This is it. And he takes it, and there's no copies in like a copy machine. There's nothing else on file. It's this. He gives it to Rayatz. The Rayatz looks at it, jumps up, and without running away, just staring the minister in the eyes, takes the first paper, just rips it. Second paper, just rips it. And the minister is screaming and yelling, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" But he's not doing anything. He's just screaming at him. And the Rayatz just continues tearing paper after paper after paper into little pieces. And at the end of it, the minister gave a big slap across the face to the Rayatz. But Lamaisa, that's all that happened. And he just walked away, and that was it. So this is one of the things that the Rayatz comes back to the Rashab, and the Rashab says, "See, sometimes the best way is the direct way. Sometimes that's the best way." So, what I learned from a mice like this, Tzadikim have kaiches like this. But what we can take from it is that sometimes we're a little bit too afraid and too intimidated of challenges in our lives than we should be. A person has to remember, you have an neshama, means that you're more powerful than you think. You're more powerful than pretty much anything in the world. There's nothing that's more powerful than Nishmas Yisrael. And so we should be zeicha to tap into that energy, not to be afraid, and very often just take the direct approach. We should be zeicha to see Yeshuas and Nechamas from that. We should be zeicha to have a week of light, of health, of success on all levels. Bagashis, Ruchnis, Exalted, Tzadikim, Amen.